Good evening. Today is July 20th, 2020, and this is episode 8 of New Paradigms. I'm your host, Sargis Sangari, the Republican nominee for Congress in the 9th Congressional District of Illinois. My guest today is Tom McCullagh. He's a Republican nominee for the 49th District in the Illinois State Senate. Tom is 34 years old and was raised on the south side of Chicago. Tom spent 20 years in the restaurant industry, starting at a very young age, working for his stepfather in Papa Luigi's. After which he became a partner in that organizational franchise group. And after selling out of the franchise group, he went on to becoming a district manager and then also a regional manager with a national restaurant chain. Thomas became a small business owner in 2015, a year after I established my LLC, and he continues to work in the construction field to this day. Tom began his active service to the nation in 2005 when he enlisted in the United States Navy as a nuke. In the same year, though, Tom suffered a very serious life-changing accident where he was severely injured and was unable to continue his service to the nation and the armed forces when an undocumented immigrant, drunk driver, rear-ended his vehicle at 50 miles an hour. Tom continued, though, to serve the nation in politics, where he became very active in the Republican Party, volunteering on many campaigns. Thomas and his family moved to Will County in 2013, where he focused on raising his two daughters and also growing his business until 2018, when he finally became more active in local Republican races and chose to run for state Senate. Thomas is an outspoken advocate for a fixed property tax plan for Illinois, a very strong supporter of the teachers and police officers. Today, Thomas serves on multiple charities as an executive director, most notably the Canines for Veterans, and most recently worked to establish the Republican Party, Rebuild Illinois, where he is the president. So, Tom, thank you for your service, and it's a pleasure to have you here today with us.
Thank you, Sargis. It was very awesome being here. For anybody watching, me and Sargis, we became really good friends over the last, 6 months now since the COVID-19 stuff happened. And like, you know how it is, like when you first meet somebody, you just click, and like everything we talked about, like going to politics, you go into service to the country, you talk about the Canines for Veterans and the PTSD issue that our veterans face if they come home, and the suicide rates. On every single level we could have connected, we have. And I appreciate your friendship to this day. Thank you.
No, Tom, thank you very much, buddy. That means a lot. I think a lot of people don't know. I think anything you had done in your life, you've been wonderful. I'm sorry what happened as far as the vehicle accident is concerned. I'm glad that you're alive and we have you here with us today. Tom, tell me a little bit about your race. Tell me what your district looks like. Where is it at? Or how does it lay out? And what are we looking at right now?
So it's Plainfield, Shorewood, Oswego, half of Bolingbrook, and then it's goes into like half of Romeoville, half of Cresthill, a sliver of Joliet, I think a block or two of Montgomery. So it's a pretty gerrymandered district. But the vote disparity the last two election cycles, my opponent's only won by 2,000 votes. So I do not have an incumbent in the race. She's vacating and she's running for Will County executive now. And I have somebody named Meg Capel running against me in the general election on November. But we're running a Where's Meg campaign because my opponent has been completely silent since she won her primary. The only thing she's done is shown up to tell nurses to strike in the middle of a pandemic, which to me seems complete folly. So, as you know, Sargis, I've been active almost every single day, either on Facebook, going out to parades, trying to do Reopen Illinois rallies, trying to get our businesses back open. I've been working with nurses and I've been working with doctors. We've gotten gift cards out to nurses' families. And my whole life's been centered about giving back to the community. And I want to try to continue doing that through this election cycle and beyond, whether I win or lose.
Well, I think you've done a yeoman's job, to be honest. I don't just mean it. I mean, Tom's everywhere. Every time I turn around, look at something, a news story somewhere, Tom is there. And I'm going to really thank you for helping us out. I know when the initial COVID struck, we were under lockdown. I know we were trying to do something, especially for law enforcement community. The first opportunity I had when I reached out, you actually came up and talked to me, and we were able to work on the face masks and those shields that we were able to get out there to our first responders. And I know that the men and women of the Legion of St. Michael really appreciate it. We have a one video that we got a couple of pictures on a video where you were interviewed on ABC on it. And I want to make sure that that everybody knows that this first time me and Tom really kind of clicked and started working together, because I was trying my best with the Family Support Group initiative for our first responders. Hopefully, when I get into Congress, we can make that a national effort. But if you could see the video, and I think it explains it very well as far as what you were trying to do.
Okay. Good.
A group of suburban volunteers is teaming up with Joliet Junior College to create face mask shields for local hospitals. And they're making these shields with their personal 3D printers and several others at the Maker Lab at the college. The shields can extend the life of a face mask by 300%. This whole thing started with an idea from a Sherwood man who had heard about the design, and then he got other people to join in and help out.
This is what being an American is helping each other and being out there. Nobody cares what color skin they are. Nobody cares what politics you follow. You know, it's all about being Americans, being a community. And that's the best part of this right now, is seeing people band together.
The group hopes to produce 100 shields a day.
So I will touch off on that real quick. I don't know if our audio is back or not.
It's back, buddy.
Can you hear me? Oh, good.
Yes.
Excellent. All right. So we're saying with that, they said we wanted to produce 100 a day. I met somebody named Eric Allen, who is an absolute godsend. So I worked with Joliet Junior College. They brought full production in from their Maker Lab. I reached out to Judy Mitchell, the president, and Maureen Broderick, and she got the whole board together. The board said, yes, let's do this project 100%. They brought all 40 of their 3D printers up to speed, and then they were producing hundreds a day there on top of what I had. And then Eric Allen came in, and he started cutting out the 3D shit, the masks on a laser cutter. And so we went from a couple hundred a day to like 1,000 a day. And now we've produced and distributed over 30,000 nationally. And so in the beginning of the pandemic, the biggest problem was in the crisis was that the N95 respirators and the masks were not prevalent. The nurses and doctors were told they had to reuse them for up to 10 to 20 days. Sometimes they were told they were giving them one a month. So what the shield did is it stopped any kind of saturation or moisture from permeating the shield. And it allowed the nurses to continue working even if somebody vomited or got bodily fluids onto that. And this really helped extend the life of it. And I hope it saved lives. And I hope that it stopped some contagions for the nurses. And it was a huge initiative. We got a lot of good press from it. So in all honesty, I didn't even contact ABC News. I didn't contact anybody. I'm one of those guys like, hey, let's just do it. Let's get it going. Let's get out there and get things going on it. And I didn't care about press, because to me it was about helping people first. And shout out to my mother. So my mom called ABC 7 News. She's like, my son, and she's an angel sometimes. She's like, my son's out there. He's doing this stuff. And so she called ABC 7 News, and they're like, oh my God, let's do this. And I'm like, oh, I guess we're going to be on the news for this now. And there you go. And then that actually opened up a lot of avenues, and it got a little bit of credibility for some of the materials we were using, which is polypropylene, which is a non-carcinogen. It's also, they can stick them in a dishwasher. And we were able to then go into some of the COVID wards. I would actually have to walk past the emergency room doors, and I would have my shield on, I would have my mask on, I would go up to these COVID wings, and I would deliver them to the nurses, because if you drop them off at the front desk, they were gone before they even got to the floor. So it was crazy.
No, look, I think people are getting a sense of Tom, and I mean, I'm biased. We're good friends, and I gotta tell you, this is how you do it. It's not a matter of issue of I gotta be in the limelight. I know we're running election. I know how it is. I get yelled at by my by my campaign manager all the time too. We do these interviews. He's like, listen, you got to ask for money at the end. You got to show yourself. You can't just keep on continuing doing things without understanding there's a process to this. And I said, yes, I got it. But, at least mom is looking out. She understands what's going on. And, maybe we can have her work for our campaign too. as
I
we
say
move
I know
forward.
you well, and you have a hard time asking for money too. And like with me, I'm usually the guy, writing out checks for people, and you have such a hard time, asking for donations because you're such a self-reliant person. And if anybody knows Sargis, if you get a chance to meet him and learn his personality, you give him a project or a task, and you just get it done. So if there was one person I could pick to be in Congress, it would absolutely be you. Because, I mean, you hit your topic and you are a subject matter expert at anything you open your mouth about. And you pick a topic and you have researched it 50 ways from a Sunday. If you always want to talk about the Chinese influence on the world structure and how it's influencing our economy, you can go all the way back from from the 1800s to now and give a million examples with case studies and relative resources for that. So it's incredible your depth of knowledge. And if I could endorse you for Congress, I'm going to. I couldn't see a better person to do that job than you, without
No,
patting
thank you
each
very
other on
much,
the back.
buddy. Yeah, I
So
know and this is not a bro fest. We're just we
right,
do
no, not at all.
understand each other, and we click on each other's operations. Like we got to do it as a team. That's all. You got folks in the federal level, and then you got folks at the at the state level, and that's how we can change the system. I know that also, just like I'm a member of the Legion of St. Michael Law Enforcement Community for International National Representative. That I know you've done your best to ensure that our first responders and our police are recognized. I know it was unfortunate I couldn't make it on Sunday because I have other obligations on my campaign too, but you had invited me to come down for the rally that you set up for the police. Tell me a little bit about that, what happened on Sunday, and what was the outcome? What are we looking at?
So I was watching all the riots on TV and everybody talking about defunding the police departments. The murder rates are going through the roof in Chicago, the violent crime, everything that's been happening nationally. And, there's a highlight on a few bad individuals. And what happened in in Missouri, where the gentleman was killed, was terrible. And those were absolutely bad officers. But that does not highlight the majority and the overwhelming majority of law enforcement who are outstanding people. They are selfless. They are out there protecting us every single day. So I wanted to do a support our police rally. And I will say I'm the first candidate in the state of Illinois to do a support the police parade or a rally, because I don't know if nobody had the backbone to do it, but I'm out there doing it. And we had over 100 cars. It was wonderful. We had a police escort, Plainfield Police. I chose them over a few of the other districts. No offense to anybody else. I wanted to get there. The route was easiest. They had the best parking lot to get to it. But what they also did, most importantly, too, is they were one of the largest responding groups to local areas. So they had officers from the Plainfield Police Department on the ground in the Naperville riots, in the Aurora riots, where the improvised explosive devices were thrown at the police officers, and they were everywhere. And they have a unit response that goes out, and they helped all surrounding communities. And they didn't get too many thank yous for it. And I wanted to make sure that we did something for them.
No, I know. Look, we just couldn't get the guys from the Legion of St. Michael out there. All our guys been busy. They've been working shifts way past what their safety standards are. It is what it is. It's a reality. And I think sometimes people think that police officers are complaining. Police officers ain't complaining. Police officers been getting shot, killed, harassed, beaten, going back for 20 plus years. What the issue for the police officer is that I want to execute the laws of the land. I want to be able to enforce them, come there and enforce them. And they're tired of seeing political leadership giving him illegal orders, telling him
How do
not
you feel?
Go ahead, Tom.
Oh, see, on the federal level, like I know your extensive background and everything. Do you feel that the federal response has been adequate up to this point regarding Portland, Chicago, nationwide protests? I mean, if you had the presidency or when you were in Congress, how would you help direct some of that? And what advice would you have given? Is the level been adequate so far? What do you think, and how do you feel it should be done here forward?
All right, look, there's laws on the books that you could always use any level of law enforcement from the federal level at the local levels. Under Title 39s, even, we could bring individuals from the military in to be able to support. A lot of the military force structures that you see at the state, at the National Guard, you always have your trucking companies, you have your medical companies, you're going to have your logistical capabilities, and then you'll have your admin capability. These are the things that the U.S. military brings to bear. And under Title 39, you could bring these capabilities in, and you could even deputize individuals from the forces if need be, to be able to support, augment the police on the ground. I think the issue is that you got to strike a kind of there's a art to the process too, right? And that being the case, I think the current POTUS has been trying his best to be as patient as possible to, as a part of a forcing function, to threaten to bring these force structures in. As you know, that recently even the Fraternal Order of Police lead came out and actually asked President Trump to intervene. And the president has talked about the possibility of even going to as early as this weekend, maybe bring those force structures in to be able to support. You have to be able to enforce the laws. And I think for me, from a federal level, there's a couple of things that you're running into, right? You got the politics piece of it, and then you got what you have to do systematically to make some of the changes. We had, when we had an issue, looked at trying to do what we could for intervention of drugs that were coming to the southern border years ago. We took our military personnel, we linked them up with the sheriff at that time in LA County, and we saw that we have at least 300 hours of similar training that took place. So some of those trainings we were able to augment, and we saw that at the end, maybe 100 of those hours just basically take you to what you're supposed to do as far as a job function is concerned, either at the local level or at the federal level. So really, we're not that far apart as far as the training capacities. But I think what we could do is we could do a better job as far as recruiting, retention, and also trying to weed out the bad guys from the federal level, because those are basically lessons learned among those 18,000 different police organizations you have. Now, when it comes to the police, you have to give them an opportunity to be able to have some kind of a backbone. That backbone structure doesn't exist, Tom. And the only thing I've been pushing, and we've been trying to put something together, is to give them an opportunity. And I don't want to announce it now, but I've been working on it to give the federal ability for those national FOP to be able to have a political backing, not just a union backing that just goes in there and argues about labor issues like most of the police unions do, but to have it to where it can actually have individuals that are police, military, first responders, and get those individuals elected to office on both sides of the aisle. And then that way, you can put enough pressure on these local politicians who just don't want to do anything except for defunding the police to finally understand that we will execute the laws of the land, and we are not going to go ahead and break our constitutional oaths, which a lot of this is leading up to from the defunding of the police, to force the police under a forcing function to say, hey, either I'm going to do my job or I'm going to be worried about my pension. I think that's where the danger is if the police officer doesn't execute the constitutional orders that he has.
Right. So, I mean, when you look at Chicago, my opinion on this is if I saw it was a bunch of right-wing guys doing this and they were tearing down statues and they were riding in the streets, blowing windows out, shooting at cops, would I miss anything? No bombs, tearing down statues, painting murals on the street. If I saw my right-wing friends doing that, I would say arrest all of them. I wouldn't even hesitate at that. And I think that the Lori Lightfoot took the backbone. I was trying not to say a few other words, but she took the backbone away from the police. She told them they got to handle everything with kid gloves. And when you start handling things with kid gloves and you don't let the officers do their jobs, what they've been trained to do, that allows for more officers to get hurt and injured. And in my opinion, it's the officer's safety is just as important as anybody else's safety. There was an incident where one of the girls got injured, I think it was 2 weeks ago, and the people on the news said, oh, well, she only hit the cop 5 times. And I'm like, she only hit him 5 times, but then she got hit once, the next thing you know, it's a national issue. If I assault a police officer, I expect to be in jail. If I speed, I expect to get a ticket. When you allow rioting to happen in the streets and you tell people it's okay to riot, but it's not okay to open your business, you say it's okay to riot, but it's not okay to go to church and praise God, there's got to be a law and order. There has to be a connection. And we're a nation of laws. And I feel that if I go to the store, I want to be safe. If I come home, I want to know my house is there. And with things going on now, I worry. I went to Tennessee during the riots, and I called the police chief, and I'm like, hey, is everything going to be okay? And they're like, we got you. Don't worry. Everything's fine in Shorewood. And they did a phenomenal job.
No, they do a phenomenal job, and the Nashville FOP is actually in Nashville, Tennessee itself. So, look, we'll get there, but we're going to have to be able to work as an organizational structure with all the police officers watching each other's back. And I'm talking about not just with the unions that just only care about the labor issues, but also give them a power, a political lobby capability nationally that they don't have, and that's what I'm working at, Tom. And hopefully, once we get that thing rolling, we'll talk about it. I do want to emphasize one thing. I think, to me, most of it is tied to the 30 years of, especially in Illinois, of the corruption that's taking place. As you know, Friday, the feds announced through the Department of Justice, the press release, they announced the indictment against Commonwealth Edison. We were out there today for a news conference at Thompson Center. And I know that you released your press release. I've also done mine. People can go and look at it on Facebook for Thomas Sangari and read about it. But I want you to kind of talk about how we came to this press conference and what's your take, because it's more important for you at the state level than it is for me from the federal level to look down.
So I, on Friday morning at 8 o'clock in the morning, I'm reading my news article, and I saw ComEd names Speaker of the House of Illinois, inside the federal indictment. And I'm like, that's Madigan. That can only be Madigan. And then everything online starts blowing up. I called Gary Franchi, who's the Next News Network. I was on his show. I crafted a press release. We had everything countered out to come out at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. And it was like Christmas in July. I mean, we've been waiting for so many years, Sargis, to have Madigan get named in anything that involves a federal probe. And this is happening right now. And so you rightly called for him to resign. I rightly called for him to resign. And there is such a wave across the state to have him resign. It's been 40 years he's been in control of this state, and he's been taking dirty money for 40 years. And so on top of that, I also called for his personal campaign fund to be frozen and federally audited. And Mike Madigan is the chairman of the Democrat Party of Illinois. I have repeatedly called for that party's funds to be frozen and federally audited to look for dirty money. So I can't wait to see that happen.
Look, I agree with Drew. I got to tell you that, as you know, when I was speaking, I don't know how much of that is going to be broadcast. Hopefully tonight, I think maybe on WGN at 9 o'clock broadcast, or I think Fox was there too, that they may broadcast it. But look, one of the bigger problems I have with the whole process at the federal level is that the indictments against the ComEd was relatively successful. But there's still a lot of work that has to be done. If you want to talk about justice being served, many of the white-collar crime investigations that take place against these powerful corporations, where the U.S. attorney, in this case, and for the Northern District of Illinois, put this indictment against them. There's also deferred prosecution action that takes place. Well, the problem is, in this case, you have ComEd, the Department of Justice will defer the prosecution of the bribery charges for 3 years, and they have to meet several conditions. In this particular case, the DPA requires them to admit first guilt, which is the reason why in the DPA, the Speaker of the House of Illinois is mentioned. They have to pay that $200 million fine, as most people know by now that they've read about it. But there's certain protocols that have to change in their processes to ensure that this doesn't happen in the future. And more importantly, continue to cooperate with law enforcement, because if they do not do that during the investigation and name associated individuals, it may also lead to other bribery cases, and they could be prosecuted. The problem is that these type of DPAs that the DOJ has for these particular prosecution cases have become the norm. So the DPA has become a increasingly popular law enforcement tool that is used for criminal investigations. But I got to tell you, at times it doesn't appear to be too harsh on these particular companies, because if you recall, going back, as I mentioned in our discussion with the TV crews, that during the aftermath of the 2008 financial crisis, these DPAs were the norm, and as a result, many of those victims that were lost because of corporate greed didn't see justice because these companies were let off the hook with what appeared to be to an average citizen a huge monetary penalty, but in reality is nothing more than an amount of a couple of weeks of profit for that company. So in 2011, the HSBC actually was fined because it admitted to laundering money to terrorist groups, organizations, drug cartel, sanctions that were put against them that led to probably a number of deaths, number of people being killed. But yet the DPA was a norm, which included an omission of guilt, but overhauling of the departments and the landmark fines maybe being announced, or their roughly 1 month's profit for these particular companies. And my worry was, as I talked today, is that we have to have legislation that is not going to allow that to happen. We got to break that corporate shield, as I said during our discussion, to where the prosecutor can go after these white-collar crimes. If you think about it, because the Speaker of the House for Illinois mentioned the DPA, tomorrow he could easily go ahead and step down and walk away by breaking a deal with the federal investigators. And if he does that, he still
that would be in the news
pension
cycle for a month, and it would be buried.
Yeah, that's it. He'll retain his and
rise
he'll
off into the
run
sunset.
off in
He
the
gets a slap on the wrist.
Sunset.
Yeah.
There you go. And his echo chamber, which is the one that elects him, is going to tell him that you were in the right and everybody else was in the wrong. So my call was today that we have to be able to go after these individuals. I rather see him, and I know we called for a resignation, for his resignation. I rather see him, just like the governor of the state who is a member of his party. But I rather see a tough prosecution that puts him through the process of trial, and at the end he leaves disgraced and he loses some money. Look, I don't want to see anybody suffer. Yeah, that's it. I don't want to see anybody suffer. I don't want to see them lose their livelihood. But if you don't do that to these individuals, this is what you run into it. And I will tell the voters of Illinois and everybody, especially, I know that you're, sometimes as Republicans, everybody says you're running in tough races in Illinois. I got to tell you, and I want the voters to understand, nothing in this life is permanent. And if you thought that the Democratic Party in Illinois was going to continue to operate as it is, guess what? In 2008, under a Democratic presidency, under Democratic leadership, this investigation began. Nothing is permanent, because even at the other level, from that other party, there comes a time that you're like, enough is enough. We got to change the process. I think there's a great election to get guys like you, Tom, to move into the state Senate and start cleaning house. And that's all we can do.
Yeah, absolutely. So we were talking a little bit earlier about teachers, and I was going to ask you one other question, but I want to say this thing about teachers too. If we're talking about funding and what Michael Madigan and how those people controlled the state for so long, and they have such a good backing from the public sector unions, like the teachers union specifically, and their pensions only funded 30%. Like, what's going to happen in 20 years when they retire? They're going to say, "Oh, well, good luck to you, buddy. Now we're taxing retirement incomes on top of not funding it fully." And they've let down on every single promise that they've had to all of their public sector unions for a long time. And so, Sargis, do you think that there was any federal roadblocks recently removed that help bring some of these corruption charges up against ComEd and other people as well?
The problem is the legislation still has to change, because look, the overall, I'll tell you where the victory is in the Department of Justice. It depends who's in charge of the Department of Justice. Let's say tomorrow I go into the House of Representatives and I'm able to get a bill through the process. There's other legal authorities that can trump me in the process. So it's more complicated. You got to close down a lot of these type of loops. And there's been a lot of people going in saying that even prior to me that we need to stop this, give more power to the prosecutors. The problem is the prosecutors are afraid to go after these white collar crime, worried that they may lose a case. That's why it takes them 8 years to really work hard at it and to make sure it's solid. That's why you have 95% conviction rate at the federal level. The problem is, again, these deferred prosecution agreements still gives them a kind of a way out. What happens? We can't get into it in this discussion. To be honest, Tom, I think the best place is what we're trying to do, right? Get new, fresh blood who are going to enforce those laws. So the current Department of Justice has good leadership up top that is really pushing these forcing functions to make sure that they go after people, to go after them under federal laws, after federal crimes. Look, even the death penalty was put back in, and just over the past month, we've had 3 executions for crimes committed. If people don't think that there's going to be a consequence to what you do, then we can't get anywhere. And I'm hoping that maybe we could improve the legislation at the federal level to really cause a forcing function for those federal prosecutors to remove some of that corporate shield and go in, even with those DPAs being in place, after those individuals to allow them to do some jail time.
Yeah, so one of the other problems with that is J.B. Pritzker was the other person on the phone with Blagojevich. So everybody knows Blagojevich went to jail. Everybody knows he was corrupt. J.B. Pritzker was the one trying to buy the seat. He was the one that was in all the federal cases. He was the one offering the money. Oh, I can be anything. He sounded like the spoiled stepkid. He was trying to get in like, oh, can I have the speaker? Can I have this? Can I get appointed to this committee? Can I be the lieutenant governor? He wanted anything political, and he was trying to buy it, and he was talking about how to move everybody around to get this thing done, and he got off scot-free. So when you look at all of these things that are happening in the state, and you look at Madigan, and you look at ComEd, and now there's a Walgreens thing, and a few other things are getting tied into some of the mandatory vaccination programs that the state's trying to do, and all these other programs that are getting brought in, all this dirty money, it looks like there's no consequences. So when you're talking about a good reform system, you're talking about actual punishment for these people, that makes me happy, because I feel that like if somebody like J.B. Pritzker can walk around and blatantly tell everyone, hey, I'm going to buy this seat. The dude that I was trying to buy it from went to jail, but I'm perfectly fine because I'm a billionaire and I'm spoiled and I got away with it. And it's, to me, it makes me feel like as an American citizen that there are 2 different justice systems: one for the rich, spoiled people, and one for the people who are connected, and then one for everybody else. And it's broken.
You gotta,
So I hope
you gotta get
it's fixed.
Look, you got to get ethical leadership in. I know that I mentioned that you're the president of the Rebuild Illinois, and we're running out of time, but I do want you to talk a little bit about it as to why it led you here. And what you're telling me is basically, I think, what is the final goal of this Rebuild Illinois, to get ethical leaders at all levels of the of our local government to be able to make those changes.
You got to change that thumbnail on me. I'm like turned off at a weird angle. So the purpose and goal of Rebuild Illinois is to get ethical and great leadership into the state. One thing that I've always felt that Illinois has been lacking, growth and leadership at the lower ballot races, like school boards, county board seats, trustees, anything that is below state rep, state senate, or any congressional seat. How the Democrats have taken control and how they expanded the power base inside the state of Illinois is through those lower seats. So Rebuild Illinois, through the PAC side, we're going to be focusing on funding school board races, funding, like park districts, anything that's lower below state rep and state senate. We'll still have some of those in the purview, but it's finding key people who are going to go into those districts. And most of your taxes come from those county board seats. Most of your taxes come from your school boards. So when you go into those seats, you can be able to reduce the tax rate, say no to new taxations, root out corruption a lot easier, and as well as bringing up consolidation issues. Like if we have 16 or 17, sanitation districts, we really need 17 of them with everybody getting pensions and getting all the other structures in place, and consolidate those regions down to it. And the biggest focus is going to be that we have 6,000 units of government in Illinois. And we got to bring that back down to a manageable level. Come back down to 1,500 like Texas. Texas has 3,000, and it's twice the population base as we have. So it's telling us that that system is broke. And over the last 40 years, Madigan has built out from 1,000 levels of government to 6,000 levels of government, because those were all pockets of corruption and pockets of places that they can put money in and gain influence. And that's how the Democrats have gained control for. So it's not even Democrats. It's just that's how the corruption money is filtered out across the state to retain the power base that he's had for so many years.
Yeah, but it's unfortunate. It's detriment to the United States. At the end, it's going to be detriment to them. You can't take this money with you. Unless these folks have figured out how to take it with them after they're dead. I don't know how much money you're going to be able to take. It's a matter of just, that's what happens. Corruption just breeds that. It almost becomes a game. And unfortunately, who suffers? The United States does in the long term. So we have to be able to change things. We got to get guys like you in the Senate, Tom. And with that said, thank you for also giving us an opportunity. Because I know when you came in with this Rebuild Illinois and you said, I want to have you on the board of directors, I said, of course, because
I was going to say you were a logical choice for that.
I would not have done it without anybody else. We don't have time to get into all the other issues. I do want to give you some opportunity, some time about telling us. First of all, let me ask you a question. I've asked this from everybody. Have you received any type of support, monetary-wise, from the Illinois GOP? Is there anything
Not
there
yet.
that? Okay. But
No,
your
they
polls
give
look
everybody
good.
the same thing, saying that they don't have money. And that's the thing in Illinois. A lot of people have lost heart, so the donations have gone down. I did just have a recent poll like you were bringing up. I am up 4.5% right now, so almost 5
Good.
points in a race that was 2 points the other way. So I'm doing everything in my power. And how about you? Federal support, anything coming out your way?
No, I mean, we're in a tough fight, but look, the battlefield has changed, and we're going to fight the fight we can. I'm hoping that, as this battle continues, maybe in the long run, they'll understand that they have to invest in guys like you specifically. We got good talent in Illinois, but if you don't invest in it, it's not going to go anywhere. So look, just like you, I have to do the same thing. I know that you're working 24/7 as you're running the race. Where do people have to go to support you as far as donations are concerned, Tom? How do they get a hold of you and
Donations.
help you?
So you can go to my website for donations. It's www.mccullagh, MCCULLAGH, the number 4, then Senate.com. In the top right-hand corner, there's a big button that says donate. Click on that button, and it can go all the way down to $1 up to $5,800. Whatever you want to do, you can do $1 a month. We have monthly recurring donations, and I usually do a post every day, every other day on my Facebook page. So it's facebook.com/McCullagh, same spelling, MCCULLAGH, the number 4, and then Senate. That's where you come up with it. You see all my news releases, all the fun articles. I even put some memes up there, like I had Governor Pritzker as Dr. Evil, and I had Lori Lightfoot as Mini-Me. So it was fun.
Tom, I wish you all the best. Really, it's going to be a nice, good, hard-fought battle. We're going to do our job. At the end of the day, if we don't come on top on 3 November, as I've told you before when we had this discussion, I'm not the one who's going to lose. It's the people of Illinois. So they're going to have to deal with the same cast of characters. So we're doing our job. We're in the fight. Hopefully, people can come on and help. And before my campaign manager kills me again, please, we need money and we need support. We cannot run a campaign without money. This is a critical time right now for us just to get simple yard signs out there, bulletin boards. There's going to be a name and face recognition campaign, and hopefully we can get that support. Please go to votesangari.com, votesangari.com to support us. We're looking for all the donations possible. And Tom, you are going to win. I'm very assured of that. And God bless. At least we're going to have one individual in a seat to be able to defeat the system. With that said, thank you very much for all our listeners to listening to the New Paradigm Show. And again, this is Colonel Sangari with Tom. And God bless you all. And please keep on fighting. And don't forget, register and vote. God bless.